There you go. Now you're live.
Thanks for waiting, Josh's friends. Hello, everyone on my page.
On the socials.
Yes.
Did you see the title of the talk, day one?
So we are still processing some of this as it goes. However,
well, there's day one as a concept, which we're not processing. That's a thing. And then there's what happened after I wrote down my day one, which we are still processing.
Right. Now, before we tell you what happened, what transpired on Sunday and Monday for us, I want to say this, and that is that, you know, Josh and I come on a lot and we share with you guys pretty candidly about, we've talked about everything from our relationship to our parenting to how we have
communication.
Yeah, communication. We've talked to you about greater good parties that we have hosted, about the podcast that we do, which is called How Good's This, and we talk about creative hacks. There's been a lot of different topics that we discuss. Hi Eric, hi Melita, hi Francois. And today, I guess you could say it's kind of a combination of everything, because the topic is about, well, life. In other words...
Sorry, here comes a po-po.
Hold, pause. But I think today's conversation is really a lot about everything we talk about. And it's going to be a candid conversation because it is something that, hi Terry, that happened for us earlier this week. And I just want to sort of remind us, which we didn't talk about beforehand or offline, is that, if we've learned anything, and it's been a long list, but if we've learned anything in the last 5 years of tragic loss, it has been that we know that we can get through these moments, these tougher moments, more tough moments, with more communication, with more connection, with more honesty, and doing that not just with ourselves, meaning within our relationship, but doing it in community. And so we have basically turned on the cameras, if you will, or the podcasting equipment, and really from a public perspective, sort of let people in on the conversations that Josh and I have, sort of, when we're laying in bed at night. And that has done a couple things. The couple things are, number one, it has really allowed us, both Josh and I are very committed, ever since the two tragic losses in the last 5 years, and obviously we've experienced loss before that, but these two in particular, we really committed to and are committed to today, and this is why we're on talking to you, we're really committed to expressing more of all of who we are. In other words, social media, the social media platform, social media as a thing, when we've all sort of said this or thought this, where it is a place where you go and share like really positive, moments in your life, or like
the best side,
the A sides, right? But there's B sides too, and B's aren't that bad. By the way, I was like a B student. I was a B student, couple A's, kind of, crept in there here and there. But I was a B student, and B's are okay. B-sides are cool. B-sides, honestly, B-sides connect us as human beings. B-sides have connected Josh and I more and more, throughout these 20 years that we've been together. And we're committed to sharing those B-sides with one another, but also as much as we can in our work, but also on social media, really sharing that with community, because it does... It is who we are. It is all of who we are. So we're committed to outtakes. We're committed to authentic expression. We're committed to connection, and we're committed to an honesty, I guess, that brings about both. So do you want to share what happened on Sunday?
Yeah.
Or however you want to do it. However you want to do
it. Since the title is day one, I'll tell you what day one was on Sunday and then what happened after it. But I was going through kind of a mental state of wanting to create some change in my life, and going on a walk around the neighborhood kind of came to the realization that a lot of what we focus on when we're focusing on change is we focus on it in a negative sense of what we're trying to get rid of or what we're trying to walk away from, as opposed to what we get to walk towards or what we get to start. So, and I'm sure I'm stealing this from somebody's practice, but I called it day one, and I said, well, look, if this is my day one, what starts today? Let's not focus so much on the things I want to stop doing. Let's focus on the things I want to start doing, because once I start doing them, then I'll stop doing the things that I don't want to do. And so I came up with a list that felt really good and important to me. And as I walked in the front door of the house, it felt like somebody punched me in the face and hit me with a cattle prod on my left arm. And I kind of stumbled back and sat down in a chair that's by our door. And my left arm was completely numb and paralyzed, sitting in my lap. I reached over, kind of confused, grabbed my left hand with my right hand, and it was like I was grabbing a piece of meat. It was just dead. And then a few seconds later, it kind of jumped in my lap like a fish, and then tingling started to come back. I got some movement back. I stood up, and I thought, holy fuck, I just had a stroke, or something like a stroke. The short version of it is we first went to urgent care and then went to the ER from there, where...
Can I share what happened when you came upstairs real quick?
Yeah.
So Josh came upstairs, and Nolan and I were there. We were in our master bedroom, and we said something to you like, oh, hey, just like we're super light, being super lighthearted, and we're like, hey, we need to go to the pet store to get a cone for Holland because he has that wound, on his neck. And Josh, as some of a lot of you actually on both of our platform or both of our pages know Josh quite well, so you probably know that his personality is pretty even. He's a pretty mellow dude, and he comes upstairs, and he's holding his left arm, and he says, after he hears me say that, he says, okay, and I think what you said was, and after we do that...
No.
It was before?
I said, what I really need you to do is take me to urgent care.
Urgent care. Okay. All right. So he says, but very calmly, you said, okay, but what I really need you to do is take me to urgent care. And he said, I can't feel my left arm. It's going numb. And he starts to tell me what he just shared with you. Now, hi, Melissa, when you said that, I said back to you, this is so weird because I knew you were going to tell me that. So we're going to save that for another live stream, but let me just say that this idea, the energy, the truth that exists in the energy of a collective consciousness. I don't think it was necessarily maybe psychic ability. I think that a lot of people do have that. I have a crazy intuition. I think though it was probably something that, again, I love and adore this man. There is this very strong connection between us, as there is between you and your partners. And many times we, as partners, do know or can feel, I don't know if it was, again, that I was feeling you walking up. I don't know what it was, but there was this really interesting moment, you guys, of I knew that you were going to say that. So after I said that, literally I threw on my shoes, and we got in the car. We get to the urgent care calls the ambulance, we get into the ambulance, you get to the ER, and then... Yeah,
and then more. Well, basically what went down was I had all the symptoms of what's called a transient ischemic attack, TIA, which is basically a mini stroke. It's not a stroke that causes damage, but it is as if you had a stroke. There's a blockage. It causes all the symptoms of a stroke, but not damage. So they wanted to figure out if that had happened and also potentially rule it out. So had a CT scan, had an MRI on the head, had an ultrasound of the heart, a lot of different tests. But along the way, the stroke specialist and the emergency room doctor were saying, look, it just doesn't sound right because while you had all of the symptoms of a stroke, it happened so fast. It was all, but honestly, the event was there and gone in 30 seconds. They said that's the part that doesn't fit with a transchemic attack or a transient attack. So they called in a neurologist to consult. Long story short, he said, I want to keep you overnight because I want you to do another MRI tomorrow on your neck. I have a feeling this might have something to do with the nerves.
Now, mind you, I'm sitting waiting to hear anything. I'm trying to keep as calm as possible. I'm talking to Nolan. I'm saying, we're in the right place. There's so many things that are already going very right. In other words, we got your papa to the hospital within 40 minutes. This is a great hospital. It's a stroke hospital. At that point, we thought, Nolan and I thought that it was a stroke as well. But what was also going through my mind was, and it was also gratitude, meaning grateful that with your family history, because at that point, you guys, we had thought that Josh's biological father had passed of a stroke. Now, they weren't super tight. He wasn't really in Josh's life. And so, and we'll talk that some other time. But meaning what we found out as a result of you going through this.
But that's
yeah. But we, so I'm sitting in the ER thinking, I am grateful that we're here, but holy crap, Josh's dad had we think that Josh's dad had something similar to this. I'm worried, right? Because there's the family history. So.
Yeah. And I mean, the nice thing was, although it wasn't funny at the time, there were some moments of levity looking back. They had difficulty getting the line into my vein that they needed to put the contrast solution in for the CT scan. In the middle of the scan, I felt all this liquid, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, am I bleeding all over myself? But it turned out that it popped out, and the contrast solution was spraying all over me. Certainly not funny at the time, but now at least it's a story.
Yeah.
But the short version-ish is that after all of the tests, they were actually able to rule out any stroke-related event. And what had actually happened was, whether I was born this way or age, either way, it turns out that I have a narrower than normal cervical spinal column, which means the part that goes down my neck. And that, coupled with a herniated disc, caused a strange pinching of the nerves that go down my left side and caused the complete paralysis of my left arm.
Now, what's important about that for any of you watching or, watching right now, hello, by the way, or the replay, and this is another reason why you and I wanted to come on to share, is that, Josh was producing, or your body was producing the exact symptoms of a stroke. Now, what we learned, which was a really big aha for me, and maybe it'll be a big aha for you guys as well, what we learned is that, well, it's kind of a holy crap, I can't believe that our neck, now I know that our cervical spine or an impingement in that area can cause you had numbness of the face, you had impaired vision, the numbness here. So I guess I share that to say, when something is happening in our health or with our health and we think, oh my gosh, and we get so worried, right? Because this feels like a stroke, or this is a stroke, these are all the symptoms of a stroke, that just allowing ourselves to sort of breathe a little bit and remember that medicine, well, number one, medicine is a practice for a reason. They call it a practice for a reason. We don't necessarily know everything. There's a lot of gray, right? And so I feel like there was a lot of gray that day, where you and I had already made our minds up that this was happening, and it was something else. And so hopefully that's maybe peace-inducing for all of you, whether you're going through something health-related, or if and when you go through something, or a family member. Just remember to breathe. Remember to be as grateful as possible for having the health insurance you do, or having, the healthcare down the street that, we drove a whole 7 minutes to get to a stroke hospital.
And ask a lot of questions. I mean, that's kind of how we started to get to the reality of it, was that they kept saying I had the symptoms of the TIA, the transient ischemic attack, and yet they were also asking me questions about, have you had migraines in the past, and have you ever had this issue with your vision? And I kept saying, well, why are you asking me those questions when all of my symptoms are on the stroke side? And they said, well, here's the deal. Normally, the TIA, there's a longer time horizon for that. The quickest that we would see that would be an hour, where you would see kind of a gradual onset. It's not, your thing happened in under 30 seconds, and so that doesn't fit. And so that was when I started to realize, oh, okay, maybe it hasn't been what I've been getting all the tests for. Yeah. But I think where we wanted to go with that was, reality's harsh mistress at times. And I think it was interesting to have that moment in my life where I had actually taken the time to write out on a piece of paper what I wanted the start to be, and then walk in through the front door and feel like that start had been taken away from me. So if anything, it's only kind of strengthened my resolve in terms of some of the decisions that I've made, and the path that I want to go down. I don't think I necessarily needed that in order to be convinced of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I think it was a pivotal kind of flashpoint for me in my life around, even though everything that I presented with in terms of the stroke wasn't actually true. Heart rate's great, blood pressure's great, no issues to deal with there. But why not, at this stage of my life, start living my life as if stroke was an issue? Why not start eating better? Why not?
And you eat well already, but what's that next
level? But why
level?
not have a more conscious focus on what I'm doing?
Correct.
Is the point.
Yeah. And you guys, we've joked because as most of you know, whether you've been at a Greater Good party or you've been a client or you're just a friend or a friend of a friend or you've seen some of our shares before. Again, we do love humor, and during hard moments there is still some funny stuff that goes on, and recently we've said it a couple times where we're like, because when Dino died and my mom passed, those were tough, those were tough times, and we reevaluated our lives then. And we were saying, just before we, I think, pushed go live, we said to one another again, like, here we go, like, reevaluating everything again. Did we need, and I know what the answer is to this, but did we need another opportunity? And keyword opportunity. Did we need another opportunity to recalibrate, to reevaluate our lives? The answer is yes.
Sure.
I think sure.
Yeah.
It's a sure. You know what?
Yeah.
It is. That's it. It's like, sure, why not? And so Josh so beautifully called it day one. In other words, like, at least the way I took it, correct me if I'm wrong, was, this is the start of a new life. This is the start of my sort of recommitment of what this expression or what this recalibration is going to look like, and how odd and cool at the same time that you had that you were writing those notes as you were walking around the neighborhood, wanting to do something different in your life. Whatever it is, right? Go after bigger dreams, go, be better with your health or whatever. And then as he's walking up these very steps, he has, right, all of those symptoms. So I think, one of the things, and I want to read you guys something that Josh wrote to Nolan, which hopefully will support us all. And honestly, I think a lot of what we do here on these videos as well is just allowing ourselves to sit with the information, to yes, we're sharing for connection reasons. Yes, we're sharing for, hey, to say, like, I am you, you are me. Like, we're not very different. And, as much as there are A sides, there are B sides, and it is all okay. These sharings also really just help you and I continue to heal, continue to evolve,
Yep.
And I think that's what connection does. Like, if we can allow ourselves to be a little bit more vulnerable or a lot more vulnerable, connection happens. And guess what happens when connection happens? we heal. You know, we do better. I mean, you just told
Yeah.
me this a couple hours ago. What's the thing that allows us to live longer?
Oh, the greater predictor of longevity isn't genetics or diet or exercise. It's your friend connections. Actually, that's probably a better transition to what you were going to talk about.
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. No, what was I going to say?
Well, you were talking about reading
Oh,
that,
yeah.
but I think do that later. I
Yeah, I'll
think it's
do
a
that
better
later.
transition to.
Yeah. And I wrote something in my journal. I wanted to say we were talking about day one. So our intention again in sharing this, there's always takeaways, you know, and again, these are takeaways as big for me, for us, as they are maybe for anyone watching, or if you think that somebody will feel more understood or will get something from this, obviously share this with them. But the thing that I wrote on my subject line is, you know, could you start your own day one? Like, you and I, we don't need, you know, stroke-like symptoms that end up being a cervical spine issue to say to ourselves, no, I'm really going to make a change. I'm really going to go after my dreams.
What do I want to start doing today?
Yeah. So what is your day one? And again, make it, you know, ours was pretty, like, there was a climate, meaning like it was a big to do. It was a big shaking, but not all of us need a big shaking. Like, let's just get after our day ones now. And I don't know what you were thinking that I was gonna share, but there's two things that, and one of them you said really beautifully many weeks ago. You know, how, like, I think of the way that you and I have related with one another. You know, how much communicating we do. And this, you know, doing a video like this or doing these live streams are really just an extension of the commitment that you and I have to communication and to talking about everything under the sun. And I think what this share is also really about today is, you know, how can your relationships get better with us being a little bit or a lot more vulnerable, but also how can you, I know what I was going to say.
Yeah.
How can you reaching out for support help you live a better life? In other words, and I'll share with you candidly. So I am that woman in her family's life that, it's, you know, like when I think of when Dino passed away. Hi, Melita. When Dino passed away or my mom passed away, I am the girl, and meaning when I say girl, I did do this when I was very young as well. My biological dad died when I was very young. At about 5 years old, I really got that I needed to be strong to survive, basically. I mean, let's just, you know, call it that. And that strength, because it is strength, but now I've evolved to a different type of strength as well. This sort of more, you know, this more sort of vulnerable strength, where it was very difficult for me to ask for support. Now, when this happened on Sunday, I consciously, you know, I sat there in some of the worry, and even the next day on Monday, and instead of saying to myself or choosing or deciding that, okay, well, in 3 weeks' time, when this is all over, maybe I'll share this with my friends. Like, hey, we had this scare with Josh the other week. I decided, no, I'm actually going to do something different. It was my own day one.
Yeah.
It was literally my own day one.
Well, we've talked before about how in times of stress, people coming home from work, in times of stress, we naturally constrict, as opposed to expanding and reaching out and doing things. So
Right.
that's a part of it.
Yeah.
Especially when there's something going on in your family that's a scary thing.
Yeah. Well, and you and I have talked a lot about that. Like at one of the last Greater Good parties, we talked about that very thing, about how, you know, how you and I have consciously wanted to expand in the hard moments, you know, as hard as it is. And that there's certain tools or certain, you know, like healers and different things that we've done that have taught us, you know, given us some tools, you know, to be able to do that. But so I consciously reached out to friends, you know, our good friends, and just let them know what was going on. And it felt, you guys, it just felt so, I don't even have the words for it. It just felt natural, I guess. It felt natural. It felt, yes, this is the way that it's supposed to be. You know, we get to be supported. We get to go through these things with the village. And I think there's just so many times where we haven't, meaning as a collective, but definitely myself, where I haven't allowed community to be there for me. I haven't asked for it. It's not that anyone was not doing what they were supposed to do. It's that me, Michelle, I wasn't asking, hey, can you be there for me? You know, I remember when Dino and my mom died, it was hard for me to reach out, and I remember busting through that wall about 3 years ago, you know, with one friend. It was one conversation, and in that moment I decided, moving forward, I am going to allow myself to change and grow and evolve into someone who feels strong when I ask for support. So that was my day one. My day one came through that. And then I think also just, you know, our intention in sharing all of this as well is really to, so it's on the relationship side. And then also there was something else I forgot. Do you have anything to say while I remember what I was going to continue to share?
Part of it was the day one, which was focusing on what you get to start as opposed to what you're stopping. It was the health scare. Yeah. I just realized too, I probably shouldn't be cranking my neck to the left.
Okay, don't look at me.
To look at you
Don't look at me
right now, given the events of Sunday.
I know what I was going to say, and it goes back to what you shared many weeks ago. You said, and you may not remember exactly what you said. Again, don't look at me. But you said something beautiful about how just, you know, allowing ourselves to be more vulnerable. Like, where can we allow ourselves to be more vulnerable so that we can, and now I'm sort of adding in my perspective, but you started your sentence with that, and then I'm going to end it with saying, you know, how can we, how can you, how can I, how can we as families, as friends, as communities, allow ourselves to, even if it's 1%, 2%, 5%, how can we allow ourselves to be even a little bit more vulnerable so that we can not only be closer in relationship or in friendship or in public friendship like this, but so that in doing that very thing, we feel more free, we feel more expanded, as Josh was saying a couple minutes ago, so that we can live out this creative life that we so want to live or lead, you know, so that we can maybe, you know, not follow our dreams, but lead them. You know, I have a friend who says that. I forget who it is. Is it Janet Wallace? Anyways, so I think that's the point of us sharing too. It's just like, it really was a big moment and it was a scare for us on Sunday, Monday. Yeah. And we are even more committed and devoted to not only sharing honestly from our hearts, for the purposes of not only our own sort of creative expression and being more of all of who we are, because that is what we're here to do in life. But loss has taught us that, and so has this now.
Yep.
And also job changes. You know, I think we had a live stream not so long ago where we were talking about that, and we shared this at one of our Greater Good parties. You know, there are so many changes. There's so much, there's so many changes in life, and they're actually great opportunities. You know, life is, life is tender and brilliant. And we can really use them as, you know, use those really tender times as opportunities for continued growth, for continued conversation, and for continued
opportunities to connect with other people instead of constricting. Being human.
Yep. Allowing ourselves to be human. So speaking of, I just wanted to read you guys something, and then we'll end with this. So you know that idea that's been floating around Facebook or just the ethers somewhere, where parents write an email, write a letter, write an email to
create an email account for their kids, that they then write things to them and then figure out some point in the future, maybe when they turn 16, maybe when they turn 18 and go to college, but then give them the account of all of these memories and thoughts and ideas. And you know, it shouldn't obviously supplant your daily parenting, because a lot of what I wrote to Nolan after this health event is stuff that I should share with him today and will. But it's also a nice repository of you to give to them in the future.
That's right. which was one of your day one points. You said that you wanted to write more to him in this email account. Okay,
Yeah.
so I just want to read. I read this, and it was beautiful and poignant, but it was also like practical as well. So Josh says, here's what this is to Nolan. Here's what I'm walking away with that I think will be helpful for you. So this is to Nolan. He's 13, for those of you who don't know. Number one, things will happen in your life over which you have no control. It's just a truth. We spend much of our lives believing we're in control, but things will come along that remind you that you're not always in the driver's seat. We've experienced it with the losses of Gigi and Dino, and we experienced it this weekend with my scare. The important thing is not to give up when these events occur. Some people melt down when they're not in control, but rather to submit to the event and keep an eye out for what you can learn from it. For me, says Josh talking for those of you just hopping on, for me, even though it turned out not to be a stroke, this was a strong reminder that at 50, I need to make better and more conscious decisions about my health, my exercise, and my physical existence. So I'm walking away from this event with a new focus on what I put into my body and how I manage my stress. Number two, that said, remember, so again, he's writing this to Nolan. That said, remember that when life overwhelms you, you still make the decisions. When some people get overwhelmed by life, they react by surrendering completely to the advice of a doctor, or maybe they've suffered a spiritual loss, like the death of a loved one, and they give themselves over to a guru. The truth is that even when you're not in control, you're still the one making decisions. When doctors were communicating the stroke versus neck issues to me, I always asked questions when I was confused, and when I thought they hadn't considered something, I brought it up. Some people, when overwhelmed, consciously or unconsciously, give themselves over to someone with authority. Again, someone like a doctor or a guru. But the truth is, no one is thinking about you, I love this, with the level of detail that you can bring to you. People can help you, they can educate you, they can guide you, but you get to make the decisions. You get to ask the questions, and you are always the one who decides what is right for you. Number three, there are very few things in life that can't be fixed. We say this to you a lot, or at least we used to when you were younger, Josh says to Nolan. And it's worth repeating in this situation. For a moment, I was very scared and overwhelmed, and that's okay. The moment when a situation is in control of you, it's perfectly natural to have an emotional reaction: fear, worry, anxiety. For me, it hit its apex when I was about to go into the CT scan machine, and the stroke doctor asked me how I was doing. I started to cry and said, I'm a little freaked out right now. He said, we're going to do this scan, we're going to figure out what's going on, and we're going to take care of you. And I was reminded that we were doing everything necessary at that moment, that there was nothing else to be done. And whatever the test showed, we then create a plan to address the situation. The truth is that until we pass this earth to whatever our next version of existence is, as long as we are here, there is always something we can do to address and fix our reality. I hope this is helpful for you. I love you so much, Papa. I read that today, you guys, and not only was I so grateful for Josh's day one, for Josh's recommitment to his own life. I've definitely recommitted as a result of this, what we call in our human land here, the scare on Sunday. And when I read that, I was so grateful. I was so grateful that Josh can put his feelings into words. I was so grateful that he is like a little Josh, that Nolan will get to read this soon in his life, as he's a little bit older, and in some way, shape, or form, feel it. He may not, a lot of times when we get advice from our parents, it's like we store it, right? Like
Yeah.
we hear it, but we
file it away.
We file it
for
away.
later use.
Yeah, we don't use it right away, but I just want to tell you what I haven't shared with you since, I wrote you back saying how beautiful it was, but I just want to tell you that I'm so grateful of the man that you are, of the sensitivity that you show to your life, the awareness that you have to being a better human being, of taking better care of yourself, and how that is going to, in the best way, affect Nolan. Again, whether he takes it all and does with it right now, but just he is a better human being and a better young man because of the gorgeous man that you are. He is.
Thank you.
Oh boy.
Good times.
Yeah. So that was so I guess just being in community, it's a thank you for any of the friends who supported us this week with your words, your thoughts, your wishes. You know, there were so many of you, like when friends would ask us, this is getting dark, mine looks dark. When friends would ask us, you know, what do you, can we bring you food? Can we do this? Can you do that? And you know what I would say, you guys? I would say, just see Josh, just feel Josh and see Josh in brilliant health. See us, you know, it's that rocking chair theory, or not theory, but the rocking chair vision that Josh and I do. Like, we want to be in each other's lives for a long time, and so I would say to friends, just see him old and really gray, see him old, see him on a rocking chair, see him holding his grandchildren, you know, that's what I want most, you know. And yeah, that was huge. So for any of you watching that did support us with those visions, and your constant sort of checking in, we love you. Thank you. And for those of you who have watched this live stream and who have shared this sort of emotional space with us, thank you so much as well. And may we all continue to, you know, use platforms like this in maybe more of the ways that we would use real life, basically. Yep. Like use or how we actually are in real life with people.
And whatever you've wanted to start doing, start today. Make today your day one.
Thank you guys so much, and we will chat with you soon. We're coming out with a new podcast for the greater the How Good's This? Yep. And I'm sure more to come on Greater Good parties. But for now, focusing on this, we're focusing on what's behind these doors, and just super grateful. Bye, guys. Did you say bye?
I did. I said bye.
Oh, you did? Okay.